Ba 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 da ba 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 da da. Ba da 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 da. Did it work? Hi, I'm Bridget.
And I'm Maddie. Welcome to Baddy Breakdowns, where we hang out, have fun, and play games all the way to the end. Today we're going to talk about Tomb Raider. We'll give you the breakdown from its creation to its critical reception, and then we're going to take a deep dive into the game as we share our experiences playing it and our opinions. And at the end, we will sum it all up and recommend it or not. Who knows? And who should play it? Who knows? I don't know. I'm trying new things with this intro. And then close with our personal rating for the game. With that, let's
raid some tombs.
Oh, I was going to say put some stuff in a museum because it belongs in a museum.
That's so pithy. Let's put some stuff in a museum, guys.
That's what my brain, after the really long work day, came up with. Let's put stuff in a museum. Okay, so I did something fun with the game description today. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so I have the Steam description, which is I'll let you react to it.
Okay, I did not read it, so I don't know what it says.
Tomb Raider explores the intense origin story of Lara Croft and her ascent from a young woman to a hardened survivor.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's it. I thought that was womp womp for me.
I mean, it's not wrong. It's the problem that almost all games have, where you read it and you're like, okay, well, what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I did is I had ChatGPT write us a short description.
Oh, okay.
Of Tomb Raider.
Okay. You should have given me both, and then I could have guessed which one.
Oh, I should have.
Next time.
Okay. Tomb Raider 2013 is an action-adventure video game that serves as a reboot of the Tomb Raider series. The game follows the journey of Lara Croft, a young archaeologist who is shipwrecked on a mysterious island in Japan's Dragon Triangle. Stranded and alone, Lara must use her survival skills and resourcefulness to find a way off the island while uncovering its dark secrets.
That's like really good.
It's pretty good.
That's
she's not alone, but
she's
pretty good.
Pretty much alone.
Mm-hmm. How it's made.
How it's made. Yeah. So magically, I found another documentary on this shit. I swear to God.
Gosh.
I know. Literally every single game has this freaking documentary.
You put more effort into this section than I do.
I mean, you got harder games to do it with. Like, Butterfly Sloop isn't going to have a documentary. I got Last of Us and Tomb Raider. Like, true. Yeah. I was surprised that A Short Hike had one. That was surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I'll start off saying it was made by Crystal Dynamics. Mm-hmm. They weren't the original, like, makers of the first set of games. So ChatGPT kind of mentioned it. But we are playing the 2013 version, which is in the third, like, phase. The second reboot. So there's like
it's the second reboot.
Yes. So we have the original that started in the 90s, and then we have the 2000s, like the early 2000s, that it looked like people called Legend, which consisted of like 3 games there, and then another 3 games in the Survivor trilogy starting in 2013, which is the game that we played.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So this is all information about like the 2013 stuff. We're going to be talking about 2013 Lara today and her story there. But the like main things that I kind of took away from these documentaries, a couple pieces that are just fun. One, this was the first game in a Tomb Raider series to have a woman on the writing staff, which is fun and interesting. Fun in a sad way. Better, yes. It was Rhianna Pratchett. I think I'm saying that right. And she was the lead writer, from what I could tell. A lot of the things that I had read about her were around like why she chose to develop Laura the way that like she did, and I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the section, like the more in depth, so I won't get too much into it, but she was pretty clear that she wanted Laura to be like a real person with depth. She wanted it to be more than just like, you know, just this girl hero, whatever. Give her a lot more like character, which I think came across for sure. They talked a lot too about the different nuances on how her like growth happened throughout the game, and we'll talk a little bit about it because I am super interested in it. But the Ludo narrative, like, which is apparently game narrative, which is really fun because Ludo is Latin for game.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But there's like this whole concept of, if I remember the word right, ludonarrative dissonance, which is really popular in this game, which is the difference between the gameplay and the story being told to you. And there's a lot of controversy around Laura being really emotional, but then also being like a killing machine.
I have a thing about that.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about it, but she has a lot of thoughts on it. It was done a little bit on purpose, mainly because she wanted the character to have depth. It was very clear that they wanted her to be brave, and you can't really be brave without fear, so she wanted to show those aspects of the character. But also gameplay is hard a little bit, and you can't just have boring gameplay. She wanted, you know, there was a little bit of difficulty.
Gotta make it
there.
Interesting.
Exactly. So that's a little bit about that. The other minor note that I'll make, just because she is the first like woman writer on the Tomb Raider series, is I found a couple fun, quote unquote fun facts
about quote fun facts.
Quote fun facts about the original creators of Laura. So, you know, she's like pointy boob Laura, like giant boobs and little short shorts. The couple of interesting things that I had read was a part of the reason that they made her a woman, because it was originally like an Indiana Jones thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Was because the main like character designer dude, Toby Gard, was like, you gotta look at their butts a lot, and so we might as well make it like a cute butt. And then they made it a girl. Yeah.
I mean, it did feel like an Indiana Jones movie, so that makes sense.
I don't know. It's just they made it a girl because of the butt. And maybe there were other reasons, but that's the quote that I read and it hurt me physically. And then they had a second thing about her original character creation, which was the boobs. And they apparently were accidentally playing with the boob size percentage thing and accidentally landed on 150%, and we're like, that looks good. And so
okay. Whoops.
Literally this article,
my hand slipped and I just bumped it up and we just can't go back.
It was literally like he says no, it was an accident, and I think the exact
sure, Jan.
Yeah,
sure, Jan.
That's so funny because that's exactly what this article says. It's like, so you were just idly messing around with Laura's cup size. But anyway, so that was a big change going from that into like this version of Laura, which was very like female oriented with a female writer writing her storyline. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
A couple other things around that kind of relate to the voice of Laura was Camilla Luddington was the voice of Laura. If you don't recognize that name, she's Jo on Grey's Anatomy. Did you watch Grey's Anatomy?
I know. Which one's Jo?
Well, I don't want to ruin it for the audience. I don't want to ruin it for you because if you ever make me watch anime, I'm making you watch Grey's Anatomy.
What the
But I recognized her face right away when I saw her there. I was like, hello, Jo. In the documentary, they had asked her a couple of questions, like how did she prepare and what did she think about Laura? Fun fact is she was an archer. Like she did archery growing up. So like super legit. They also did mocap like they did for Last of Us when we talked about it. So they did motion capture, and that's also kind of fun because if she's an actual archer, she knows how to actually hold the bow, which is cool.
Yeah.
And pretty badass. And then one of the questions that they had asked her was whether or not she believes that Lara Croft is either like a video game icon or a sex symbol. Like, what is she? Which was a weird question.
Interesting.
It's a weird question, right? It's like a weird question. Are you a video game
I just
icon
don't know
or
why
a sex
someone
symbol?
would care.
Well, because they, like, first era Laura was a sex symbol. Like, that's how people saw her because of the giant boobs and the, like, little short shorts and yeah. But that's why they asked the question. And she was like, I think she's both.
Yeah.
And what she does is fight for what she believes in, and she thinks that's pretty sexy. And I loved that answer. I was
that's great. That's a good one.
Yeah. So loved that. The last little bit that I'll give was the music composer, Jason Graves, said that they wanted the island to have this personality, which I think it did. Yeah. And the way that they did that is they made their own goddamn instrument. Like, they made an instrument.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like this big behemoth looking, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It had like giant prong things poking up out, and then it had like this drum in the center with a littler like pot looking drum with also little prongs sticking out. It was the weirdest looking instrument I've ever seen in my life. They called it the instrument, and it was this like weird sculpture thing, but they made it so that they like all the sounds that were created on this instrument would like come it would come from the same thing, right? Like, it's weird. And they did it so it could have like a consistent voice, and I thought that was pretty dope.
That is cool.
So I think that's about all I have on this one. There's a lot more in the documentary. The end was a little bit boring, if I'm being kind of honest with y'all. If you want to watch it, but it was kind of boring. At one point there was like a whole section on like, oh god, will we get through certification? And that was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen.
That is so funny. That's awesome.
But anyway, that's what I got today.
I love it. All right, critical reception. So this got a 86 on Metacritic with a player score of 8.4. So pretty good. Generally praised, yes. Yeah. A lot of the critic consensus was just praising the story, the handling of Laura as a character, as well as how action-packed and thrilling the game was.
Okay.
That was commonly
was that cited. A positive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like it did a good job of being action-packed and thrilling.
Okay, yeah.
I only saw one criticism from a critic. The one critic said that it was maybe a bit too long. Okay. And then users were complaining about PC controls.
Did you play on PC or console?
I played console.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Apparently the QuickTime events didn't flash the button that you needed to press on the PC.
Oh.
Like keyboard.
Well, that would be awful. Yeah.
The next one is about it not respecting the origins of the game, which all right. We know what that is. Yeah. And then the puzzle platforming being too easy.
Did we clarify that neither one of us have played any other Tomb Raider game except for this one?
We did.
Yeah. So just for clarity, we've only played this one. So we have I read some, but I really don't have any context on the other stuff other than what I read.
I picked out some reviews that I think are funny.
Okay, let's do it.
I finished this game, so don't mind the hours played. It's a fun game, but hopelessly average. I just thought that was really funny.
Okay. Yeah.
We did it, guys. We did it. Her boobs aren't pointing. And then, this is to your point. Oh my god, I killed a man. What have I done? I'm a monster. Proceeds to kill 400 more people. My entire life, I've dreamed of a game where I could play as a dainty British girl getting tortured, slapped, and killed in gruesome ways, and who, despite suffering from severe hypothermia, never wears anything more than a tank top.
She didn't have time to knit a sweater.
Should have dressed better. That was a complaint I have. And then I have another one, but I want to save it for the end because it kind of summarizes the problems that I had with this game.
Okay.
In a fun way.
Okay, well, I'm excited for it. I'm also excited to know preemptively that you have problems with this game.
Did you not?
Oh, I had a ton.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get into the second half of the podcast and talk about the game.
Start off with first impressions.
Go for it.
Yeah. So my first impression was actually like real bad, but I don't think it was the game's fault, although a little bit I'll blame it on them. I don't know if your game did this. Mine auto-played like a trailer of the game while it's sitting on the start menu. Did yours do that?
Oh, no, mine didn't do that.
Mine did it twice, and I still don't know why,
Huh.
but so like when you start the game, it has this big cutscene
Yes.
about like the wreck, right?
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. Well, mine started doing that, but then it turned into a commercial. And I hadn't actually pressed a button yet because I was trying to figure out how to I got a new like a capture card to record the gameplay. And I was messing around with that and just letting it sit on the screen. And it just started doing that. And it turned into a commercial. It was really weird. And so it was a very confusing moment because I was like, oh God, like, is this starting? Is it not starting? And so it was a fine, like, whatever. It's not a really big deal. It was just a really awkward experience. And I'm sure most people won't have it because they probably press play instead of sitting on the screen forever. But I didn't, and it was weird. So first impression was that. Second was that it was kind of, one, a little bit more intense than I expected. Two, a little overwhelming for me right off the bat. Like, it was a lot of noises, a lot of movement. The sound was really loud. There are a lot of sound effects. There's just a lot happening everywhere all at once. And once you finally like get to play as Laura and start there, my like final like first impression kind of was you land in a cave of a bunch of dead ass fucking cocoon bodies. and I was like, God damn it, Maddie, did you pick a horror game?
No.
And it wasn't really a horror game, although it was kind of creepy at times. It was a little weird. But that was kind of my first impression, was like, oh God, did we pick another one of these? I hate QuickTime events. They are already here, and oh, it's a little overwhelming. What have I gotten myself into? And I actually only played an hour the first time because I was a little overwhelmed, and I was like, I can't keep going. Finished it all later, but yeah. So how'd you feel?
Yeah. My first impression is it just really jumps you straight in.
Yeah.
And it is quite overwhelming. And it's almost like I'm supposed to know something already. I thought I had missed something. I don't know if you felt that way.
In what way? Like, what did you mean?
It just felt like it was so, like, it's like we didn't get, like, oh, we're sailing across the sea. We're getting ready for an expedition.
Yeah.
It's just ship is crashing, and here's all these characters, and they're talking to each other, and this is how they're interacting with each other. Almost like you're supposed to know that in a way is how I felt. And the other thing that I wrote is that it had a really interesting, it really made me feel like a worse version of Resident Evil Village in how it starts.
I haven't played that game.
So the way it starts is it's really similar in that you just jump into a scene and it's very cinematic.
Yeah.
And you've got a few quick time events. And it gives you an introduction of, like, the people that you're going to meet in the game in a way that's kind of fun. And I just think Resident Evil did it better. Village specifically did it better. It just reminded me a lot of that. And Resident Evil Village probably borrowed from Tomb Raider, honestly. I mean, now that I don't know if they did or not. And QuickTime events, frowny face. My other. Yeah. You know how I feel about QuickTime events.
Yeah, I put gross QuickTime events.
Yeah.
I don't mind them as much. What I don't like about them is I feel like there's probably a better way for you to have like a skill thing that you're supposed to be doing at the time instead. And I don't know if you had this experience or I have terrible eyesight or not, but it was kind of hard to tell for some of the colors which buttons you're supposed to be pressing. Like, they made the X blue.
Yes.
And it was almost impossible to see that one. And there was another one that was green, and I was like, I cannot see the difference between these ones. It was
Yes. I had issues with the QuickTime events overall. Yeah. But, I mean, I did like... Once we started playing, it was just the intro was a bit rough for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will say too, once we actually get into the gameplay inside of that creepy ass cave, you get that first puzzle that comes up. And I think at this point, feeling already the way I was feeling, I was like, oh good, a time to breathe and do this puzzle. And I thought that it was a pretty interesting puzzle. And maybe it's the very first one where you have to go and get boxes on fire under the waterfall, but you have to like go around it.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was interesting to me. Like, it was an environmental puzzle for folks who like those. And it was pretty much a, like, you have 3 or 4 things you can interact in with the room. How do you figure out how to press what and when and time it so that you can actually like make the box go under the waterfall or around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was kind of an interesting way to do it. And I had heard that Tomb Raider was a more puzzly game. So I was like, oh, great. It's an intro to like this thing. But it turned out for me, I think that was the best puzzle of the game that I had. And so overall, like the beginning, you're right. I didn't mind it. And once I get into the gameplay, right away, I was like, okay, yeah, kind of cool. But I don't know. It didn't hit anything super special for me right off the bat.
Yeah. Should we dig into the first, like, part of the game, and maybe I'll do a quick summary?
Yeah.
So in general, the way it starts is you, as Lara Croft, are an archaeologist, and you're on a ship trying to find this mysterious island or tribe of people.
I think you're trying to find like the place for, what do they call it? Not the monastery. Is it a monastery? Like the religious cult place for a sun goddess lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know it's somewhere in the Dragon's Triangle, but you don't know where. And then you end up crash landing, for lack of a better term that I can think of right now, into the island. And you and the crew get separated. You get separated from everyone else. There's a very dramatic moment where Lara Croft falls into the water and she tries to reach for that dude's hand. And I put a smirk next to this because I thought that was her love interest, like the guy with the gray hair.
Oh, God.
I know! Which later I'm like, oh no. The whole beginning part, you're just trying to meet back up with your crew.
Yeah.
And then you finally find Sam, and we meet Sam, who is your friend from college.
Yeah. And you guys are like right out of college, I think. So Laura's pretty young. I think I read she's supposed to be like 21 in this game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because they did the math. Somebody did the math. Her birthday's like February something. Okay. I don't know. But it's 21.
Yeah. And you also get a brief introduction to Matthias, and you also get an introduction to Dr. Whitman. Yeah. And those are the initial people that you meet, and you don't know Matthias, and you're skeptical of him. And that's kind of the first part of the story. Should I keep going?
No, because I have some things to talk about.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
All right, we'll pause there.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I would add in during this first time period is they have framed this game like it's kind of a survival game. So this is the first qualm I think I have with it. Yeah. As it begins, is they frame it as a survival game. Like you get told very early, you get by a fire and you're told that you need to be by the fire to be warm, and you're told that you need to go kill a deer for food, and then you like are really distraught over killing this deer. I actually did really appreciate the vulnerability of Laura at the beginning, because if I was a 21-year-old, it doesn't matter how freaking brave you are and this shenanigan happens to you, like you're gonna be freaking the fuck out. You know? So I actually didn't have any problems with that. It was just more like they've set up the game this way, and as we'll get through the rest of it, it doesn't happen again. Like you sit by fires as checkpoints, but survival is not a part of this game. No.
There's no survival mechanics.
Yeah, not at all. I also have thoughts on Dr. Whitman, but we can save those for later.
I will just add that the one thing is I got upset because you get your first skill point, and the way the game is leading you to believe that hunting is going to be a thing.
I picked that one too!
And so I put my first skill point into an animal hunting category that ends up not mattering at all.
At all. Literally at all. I was so ticked. Because you had a limited number of them, and there are so many better ones to get. Yeah, totally. Yep.
But I thought, okay, this is going to matter, so I should put my skill point here.
Yeah.
Literally doesn't matter. So...
Oh, the other thing that I'll mention that was interesting is they start with this mechanic of you find a video camera from like remnants of your crew's camp that you go and try to find. And you start watching the videotapes, and you get the first one here. I think you only end up get two, like the whole game. Like it's not a lot. It's not really a mechanic. But you watch it, and you get a little bit more insight into the crew.
I like that part.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. So I was a little disappointed they didn't keep it up. I thought it was a fun, mysterious way to learn about the past. But you learn about the crew a little bit. Like you learn that Dr. Whitman is the lead archaeologist, and Laura is like the little sidekick. Yeah. But Laura is the reason that you guys found this island that you were looking for, and which I think is pretty badass. She keeps like showing him up, and I think it's amazing. Yeah. But I liked those tapes.
Yeah, cool. And Sam is a documentary filmmaker.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what you also learn she was there for, is she's filming a documentary mainly centered around Dr. Whitman and trying to find this group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the only other thing is when you meet Matthias and Whitman, obviously bad vibes from both of them.
Oh, awful vibes. I was like, I said Matthias, but you're right, it's probably Matthias.
Oh, sorry.
No, this dude has fucking dead ass eyes. There's no way he's not a fucking demon eating people or some shit.
Yes. You know immediately, and Sam's just like, oh yeah, like we just found this guy. He's trapped too. I'm like, girl.
Yeah, and then Laura like falls asleep right away, and you're like, what are you
doing? Yeah, you're like, girl.
Oh, stupid.
Yeah. So then you fall asleep, and then of course you wake up, and Matthias and Sam are gone. And the next part of the story is trying to find Sam again.
Yeah.
That Matthias is obviously kidnapped.
Obviously, even though they act the whole story like that's not obvious, which is very confusing.
Yeah. And you also end up meeting the rest of the crew.
I think you meet up with them pretty fast after you wake up and Sam's kidnapped.
Yes,
because
exactly.
You split up again.
And then you split up again. And I was like, wow, they keep splitting up.
Keep splitting up the whole time. And then, of course, the person that you have to go with is the Whitman dude.
Yeah.
Who is, like... I called him a weak-ass idiot. Like, he's just awful. And to, follow him around and go try and... You're not even trying to find Sam. You're trying to find Roth, the, captain.
That's right. Because the other people are finding Sam.
Yeah, the other people are finding Sam because she definitely just wandered off, right? And you are captured by these people on the island that I see them as a cult. I think they call them a cult a couple times in the game. That... are very violent, and they have kidnapped you. They kidnapped Dr. Whitman. The dude literally just hands over the weapons and gives up immediately.
I wrote that he was spineless.
Yeah, he's super spineless, and I hate that. And so then the next portion of the game is pretty much you are now on your way to escape this group.
Because you get kidnapped again, and then they don't kill you again. I mean, there would be no game. But I was like, I cannot
make a video game?
Suspend my disbelief here. They're literally yelling, kill her, and then they get her, and they don't kill her, and they just, again, hang her up on some rope.
Yeah.
That she gets out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you are on another mission, I think, next. You finally get out, and then there's a mission. I think the only thing I wrote about her going to, find this radio tower is this is another moment where you're forced to, suspend disbelief because she's gotten away from these people. She's been told via, a walkie-talkie of her crew that they need to get to the radio tower to, send a signal.
Yeah. Send an SOS.
Yeah, send an SOS. And I was just like, that feels weird that there's just a giant radio tower here, and why hasn't everyone else on the island, turned it on? We figure out kind of what happens later, but that was, really weird for me. And I started getting this is where I decided this game was a falling simulator.
That's so funny.
She falls constantly.
Yes.
That's all she does. Not all she does, but she falls all the time.
Okay, so I think at this point I want to quickly talk about the gameplay mechanics because this is where they've all been revealed pretty much.
Yeah.
So Laura has a bow and arrow that she's a specialty in, and you also pick up guns, and you end up getting a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun. So you have your bow, your pistol, your rifle, your shotgun that you end up upgrading throughout the game. The other piece of it is there's a collecting element where you collect documents that reveal more about the people of the island or your crew. They could be letters from your crew. They could be letters from people who have visited the island in the past. And you're also collecting relics, which are throughout the island. So that's the archaeology part. Yeah. She picks it up and she's like, ooh, this could have been a coin from the dynasty of China or whatever. And that is...
That's stupid.
I mean, that's literally one of them, though.
Is it?
Yeah. And then you also start to get a sense of, oh, there's like some tombs around, which is optional gameplay in this game. Mm-hmm. You explore, you do a little puzzle, and you get a reward at the end.
Yeah, and it's pretty short. Each tomb is pretty small.
They're pretty short. So that's the core gameplay, is you're finding relics, you're finding documents, you're finding tombs to upgrade your stuff, to kill people.
Mm-hmm. There is a little sneaking too.
And sneaking, yes. Mm-hmm. And platforming, like we said, right? Like you are jumping onto things, falling off of things, rope, gliding on things.
And most of the platforming itself is done with a combination of QuickTime events, which again, wasn't my favorite. I thought that it was a pretty okay implementation of QuickTime events at the end of the day, but it's still not my favorite way to platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the communication tower, you send an SOS, or Laura sends an SOS. The military comes to try to rescue you.
Tries being the key word.
They fly a military plane to your area, and it immediately, a storm starts to get conjured from some other place and shoots the plane with lightning, and it goes down. Yeah. And you go try to talk to the soldiers, and they get killed.
Yeah, everybody, they're all dead. I put RIP pilot, and then there was a couple more sentences, and then it was RIP second pilot.
It is actually quite sad, because you get close to saving them, and this is where I'm going to make this compilation, because I started recording them.
Okay.
She constantly chokes. Like, she chokes. The first soldier is alive, about to get killed. You have a bow and arrow. You have a gun. You were just murking people like 2 seconds ago. But in this cutscene, she's just like, whoa, no. And it's so frustrating. And then it happens with the second soldier, where she's like, hey. And there's literally people like descending on him, and she doesn't do shit. And it happens with
there's a lot of scenes.
Every character that ends up passing away, she chokes. And I'm not saying that she should be responsible for saving these people's lives. But again, it was a bit frustrating.
I really think that is the major complaint of that ludonarrative dissonance that I was talking about earlier, because you do expect that, right? Like, you're a badass. You've killed so many people to get to that pilot. And you feel like a badass in that moment, right? Because you've killed so many people. And then they choose all of the storytelling elements to show the weaknesses of Laura. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, you can still be strong and make mistakes and not be perfect. But when the gameplay is you being this fucking badass bitch, like killing everything with a headshot. And then you choke every single time. That's, I think, the major complaint. Yeah.
So after the soldiers die, then you see a cutscene of Sam being kidnapped by Matthias, and she's like, help me. And then she gets, put, and then Laura's like, I'm going to go rescue you, Sam. Don't worry. And she starts making her way. And then at some point, your walkie-talkie starts making noise, and you answer it, and Sam is like, hey, Laura, like, I'm trapped. Like, they have me trapped in a cage. Come help me. And then Laura says, oh yeah, like totally, I'm gonna come get you. And then over the walkie-talkie, Sam obviously gets caught. And then Laura screams into the microphone, don't worry, Sam, I'm gonna come get you. I'm on my way right now. I'm right outside. I'm gonna come rescue you. Like, no fucking subtlety. No subtlety, no concept of, you are literally telling them your position and your goals. It's in the walkies. Like, if you want to yell it out, fine. But you yell it into the walkie-talkie so that they know your exact plan. I just can't.
I am embarrassed to say that I did not think of it.
I recorded multiple times where it was again like where she's like off in the distance being carried away, and she's like, I'm gonna come get you. It's like, dude, there's literally 40 dudes and you're telling them exactly where you are.
I did notice that. I was like, girl, shut up. You're being too loud.
Anyways. So then you're on to rescue Sam again.
Yeah, which everybody knows.
That's the whole. This is the whole gameplay. Is you're rescuing Sam like a million different times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next part of the gameplay, I think, was the part that I thought was pretty fun for me, actually, because you finally get, at least at this point, I finally gotten in the groove of things.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once again, you fall
Mm-hmm.
for a really long time, and then you magically end up right where you're supposed to be.
It's great.
Yeah, very convenient
Mm-hmm.
falling. Very beneficial. So you get to Shanty Town, and it's this little literal shanty town, but it's like the headquarters of this cult thing that's happening. And the thing that I really liked about this part of the gameplay is now you get fire arrows. So Laura gets hurt during her fall, and she finds a lighter and cauterizes her own goddamn wound in this helicopter, which was whew. But then on the plus side, you get fire arrows, and I loved those fire arrows. So this is where I was like, ooh, yeah, because I really like bow and arrow gameplay.
Yeah.
And with that, plus the fire, I actually thought was pretty fun.
Yeah. And the next part of the game is you do end up rescuing Sam.
Yes.
You rescue the rest of the crew as well.
Mm-hmm.
They had also been kidnapped. The original crew, when you had split up, they had gone to try to find Sam.
Yeah.
They did find Sam, but they were also captured.
Right.
So you rescue them first, then you finally rescue Sam.
In the middle, somebody dies.
Roth.
No.
Right?
The Scottish dude that nobody like, they talk about him like 4 times.
Oh, that's right. The captain of the ship.
Yeah. No. Wait, yeah? Oh.
Yeah, he was the captain of the ship, like the older guy.
The Scottish dude?
The older guy.
No, not him. So, okay, see,
not the dad character.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to stop you here, and this will be my rant for today, okay? This will be my rant. The game is a very dark, emotional game. At least it tries to be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the dark, emotional moments have to do with the deaths of the crew, which you know nothing, absolutely nothing about. Like, literally nothing. And so when you have deaths like this that Maddie has apparently completely and totally forgotten, honestly, that's my fucking point.
I think it's the captain.
No, it's not. It's the dude. There's like a Scottish Grim. His name is Grim. He's an old Scottish dude.
Yeah.
But that's not, Roth is the captain, isn't he?
No. He was the...
Actually, you know what? This still proves my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still proves my point.
Yep.
There's like,
Who knows?
Every single time somebody dies, except for like maybe one death, I'm like, I don't even know who you were, dude. And then like Laura's really emotional. The crew's always really emotional. And I'm just like, I could give a crap that this person just died because I've seen them a total of 2 seconds because you're split up the whole time. And the only context you have are those tapes, and you only see 2. And unless you've read every single one of the letter documents that you pick up, which I only found like half of them, so like I didn't get half of the context. The like you literally don't really know much at all about any of these people you're supposed to be having emotional connections with, and that is my bone to pick with this. Is they put so much cinematic effort into those scenes, these death scenes, of which Grimm is the first one, and it's so forgettable and not emotional like I feel like it should have been.
Yeah. The other thing that I wrote that I actually did like, though, is when you're rescuing the crew, they're like cheering you on, and I thought that was pretty cute.
That was cute.
Like, yeah, Laura! Whoa! I was like, thank you. So you meet Jonah, Reyes, and Alex, who are the rest of the crew. And you had met them, but this is where you start to meet back up with them again.
Yeah.
And you also rescue Sam. And the idea is that there's a helicopter that's coming to rescue you, and you want to make it to the helicopter. And Roth, is his name Roth or Ross?
Roth with a TH.
Roth.
Yeah.
Roth is also there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're running to get to the helicopter. You get on the helicopter with Roth, but not the rest of everyone because...
I honestly... this whole like time you're trying to get them, Laura keeps having these side thoughts where she's like, we can't get on the helicopter, it's gonna crash, and then nobody else gets on the helicopter but Laura. So
but then she gets on and then she gets on the helicopter and then it crashes. It was an insane helicopter crash.
It was insane.
She would have not survived that, but her and Roth both survived that. Of course, the pilot who was operating it did
pilots
not.
die here. Pilot Death Island.
Yeah. And then that's when the next sad scene happens where Roth gets axed in the back.
Saving Laura. He like spins around.
Saving Laura. She chokes again.
That's right. She does. Yep.
And then you're like, no, my father.
That was the only one that I felt kind of sad about. Because you actually do get to know Roth a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you meet him up like a few times before then. Every other one you don't really get to know much until like later in the game. But Roth I was a little sad about.
Yeah. The other thing that you learn in this section is that Dr. Whitman was not captured.
Yeah.
And he has essentially been what he claims just pretending to go along with it so that they went easy on him or whatever, right? Which is a valid strategy, and the other crew people believe him, but Laura knows he's full of shit.
I knew he was full of shit.
And you know he's full of shit. And now you're going to meet up with the rest of the folks that are on the beach.
Well, yes, no.
What's in between?
Well, the only in between thing, which is they split up again. They meet up immediately, and then Laura is really sad about Roth, and so she stays there, and there are people with her, and they're like, "Don't worry, we won't leave you." And Laura's like, I just want to hang out here for a bit, and they're like, okay. And then Laura gets up eventually to go, and they're gone. And then she has to go to the beach to find them. So literally they're like, don't worry, we won't leave you. And then they weren't there. I was so confused.
So confusing.
Yeah, because I had taken a note, and maybe I had misunderstood what they were trying to say. Like maybe they meant like they won't leave the island without her.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, but it was still really weird because I was really put off by the fact that they were literally together again, and she just waits there for a very short period of time, and then they were all gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you're going to go meet back up with them on the beach.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
She helps them get an object to fix the boat.
It's like a pulley system.
It's like a pulley system.
Yeah,
and if they would have said...
Because the thing that's like starting the motor isn't working. So they're like, Laura, it's on a shipwrecked thing.
They called it a block and tackle. Is what they called it. And I'm looking for a freaking tackle box. Like a tackle box.
And it's on the... That also took me a while.
Yeah, and the block and tackle, apparently for everyone who's never grown up on a freaking boat, is like a pulley system that's holding up the anchor.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you what it is. They don't tell you what it looks like. And when you do like her little thing to see, she has like vision that helps you point out objects that you can interact with. When you get to the point where you're supposed to get the block and tackle, it doesn't highlight, or at least it didn't for me. I didn't notice it. I don't know. Maybe it did. I don't care. It doesn't matter because I tried like 15 times jumping around. There's a secret box that looks like a tackle box underneath where you're supposed to go. And it's like some sort of platforming puzzle to go get it. And I couldn't accomplish it. And I tried it a million times. And then I finally looked up what a freaking block and tackle was. And so,
it's on the sale.
And it's on the freaking...
Yeah.
Sad.
But that mission doesn't really matter.
It does not matter at all.
And then when you get back with your object, then you go back and Alex has gone to go get more tools to fix the boat.
Yeah.
And Laura's like, oh my God, this place is just swarming with bad guys. I gotta go help Alex.
Yeah.
And she starts making her way to where Alex went to go get more tools to fix the boat, which was their old shipwrecked boat.
Yeah. She
gets there. Why don't you continue?
Well, first off, they went to a giant infested shipwrecked boat for a wrench and a screwdriver, because there's no way that existed in a giant empty boatyard that they were in. They definitely had to go to the infested boat to do this. Did you read on your way there the letter of Alex's? Did you find it? Okay. Mm-hmm. So Alex, which we know nothing about, we find a letter from him. If you did, maybe you didn't. And it pretty much says, Laura is cute. and she's really badass. I wish I was cooler. And it was pretty much he had a crush on her.
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand, I was like, that's pretty cute. And on the other hand, I was like, literally, we're all dying, Alex, on a mysterious haunted island, and you're writing in your diary about how you have a freaking crush on Laura? And I couldn't.
To be fair, the letters from the crew were all equally like you would not be writing.
I guess
about
that's
that.
fair. I guess, okay, that's fair. I
think the only one that made sense was Reyes was writing a letter to her daughter.
Yeah, that one did make sense. You're right. But that's a totally fair statement. I was just like, okay, come on. But you eventually end up back on your original boat. So the boat that you had crashed on in the storm at the beginning of the game. And so you see like your old room and like a old picture of you and Sam, which is kind of fun. I wish you could have done more on the boat, but you couldn't really.
Yeah.
And then you get to
you watched
Alex.
another little video, right? It doesn't matter.
I don't know. I don't remember. Whatever. But you get to Alex. And you actually, this is a puzzle I was kind of okay with. You get to Alex, there's a puzzle before you get in there, and he has found himself crushed underneath a part of the ship that's sinking, and you eventually have to take the tools, and Alex dies in there. You kiss him
first.
on the but first you kiss him on the cheek. Was it a
Because
friend?
was that necessary?
No, I just
was that necessary?
And it's like, I wonder if she would have kissed him if she hadn't read the letter. I don't know.
Felt like a pity kiss.
Yeah, it was.
And that's
definitely
weird.
a pity kiss. I love that. Definitely. And like this was one of the scenes too where I was like, we're supposed to have this emotional connection to this kid. We have never really talked to him this entire game. And
I liked him. He seemed nice. Like he was cheering you on when you went and rescued him. And he wrote nice things about you.
Yeah, name a third thing.
And then when he's dying, he's like, how often do guys like me get to be the hero? And that was kind of cool and like sad.
Did you notice Chris was sitting next to me, and literally as he's watching this scene, he was like, he has a tattoo of the symbol caffeine on his neck.
Of the what?
Like the chemical symbol for caffeine is on Alex's neck. And
that tracks.
Yeah, it tracks, and it was so funny. And it was just also so funny that it's on the screen for like 2 seconds, and I'm over there dying because she's giving him a cheek kiss, and I'm like, doing that.
What is he doing?
And he's over there like, he has the chemical symbol for caffeine on his neck, and I'm like, how do you know that, and why?
That is so funny.
But anyway, he dies. Done.
Yeah.
And you head back with your wrench and screwdriver.
Yep.
And actually, before we get into the next part, I'll pause for 1 second. And I will say that I am laughing a lot at this game, mostly because it's fun. It's funny to me. I actually was kind of having some fun playing it. Like, I actually was having some fun.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to state that so that people knew.
Yes. And you meet back up with them on the beach. You uncover something that says that there is a object that is the thing controlling the weather.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura is now convinced, and you've kind of been getting bits and pieces about this sun queen that controls the weather and kind of rules the island, and no one can leave it. Yeah. And Laura's really convinced that that is something to do with why they can't leave. The Reyes on the crew is less convinced, and the other people, she's the most unconvinced. She's very scientific. She's like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And then the other crew members are also less convinced, and so they start fixing up a boat, and Laura splits off again and starts to go find the object that controls the weather, apparently, because there's a traveler that said that, oh, this is how they control the weather.
That's where you find like a couple of documents where you figure out that Whitman is super trash and he's just trying to get famous.
Yeah. So his plan is everyone needs to die because it will be more tragic. And then he wants to bring a camera crew.
Yeah. And be famous. Be the only survivor.
The only survivor.
The sole survivor. I've been watching a lot of Survivor lately, so I was like cackling.
Yeah.
It's like the sole survivor. But anyway, he is a total rat. And we also learn one other interesting thing just from a lore perspective, which is throughout this whole time, there's been like this weird, mysterious, like Japanese combat entity
Yeah.
that's been wandering around that's like giant. And I think he's and others are the people who run those weird cocoon people caves. And they're called the Oni. And that's where this is like where we learn that is we finally put like a name to what that is.
Yeah.
Because that character was like, there's just this creepy thing that existed on the island outside of the cult that you didn't really know what it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Sam gets kidnapped again.
But kidnapped by Whitman. A piece of shit.
Because he's going to go try to take her to Matthias to win Matthias's favor.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Then you get to a cutscene where Matthias is trying to be like, this is your new queen. Because the other thing that you've stitched together is that the sun goddess gets reborn through various women. Like, like that's the gist that you get, right? Yeah. Like she passes to the next like vessel. Literally they call her the vessel. And Sam is going to be the next vessel for the Sun Queen. And Matthias is convinced that if Sam's the vessel for the Sun Queen and he's the one that made it happen, she'll let him off the island.
Right.
And you get to a spot where you learn about the Oni, which is separate from the Matthias cult people.
Yes.
They're like the native Japanese people of this island.
Yeah. Protecting the Sun Queen. And the Dr. Whitman is like, look, I brought you your Sun Queen. And they're like, the fuck? And then kill him. Which is great. I was like, LOL, he deserved it.
Because Matthias is like, oh yeah, they know.
Yeah,
they know.
Totally.
They don't know. And so Matthias sneaks Sam into the place. And that's where you go after her.
Yes. Yeah. There's also some interesting There's also some interesting lore once you go after her that are scattered around, which I had actually been taking notes of it beforehand, but hadn't really mentioned it because it wasn't relevant yet. But you get like little bits and pieces of this story of a priestess who was the like maiden of the Sun Queen, the original Sun Queen. And you get like little letters that devolve from like, she's really close to me, like I'm afraid that she's gonna pick me, what if she picks me? And at this point, I think right as you follow Sam in or try to get in, you find another letter where she's like, I don't want to do this. And so I had predicted even beforehand, I was like, I 100% bet you that girl found a way to not be like become the vessel, and that's why this like Sun Queen is so pissed. I was right. But I called it. But it was, you get like little sprinkles of that. And I actually really did like that little storyline. I thought that was a really fun storyline. Yeah.
And you do meet the big dude. And you think you're about to have a boss fight with him.
Yeah.
I thought this part was so funny. I was like, boss fight time? Nope. He gets blown away by the wind.
Yeah.
Which was just really funny to me.
Falling simulator even for the Oni.
Yes. Then you do a bell puzzle that I wrote boo next to. Kind of a bell puzzle. It's the first one to get into the ritual chamber. And you have to open the crank. And you have to raise the bell thingy. And then you have to close the crank and then release the bell thingy. And then do the bow and arrow to make it swing. And then you have to jump at the right time. And that took me forever.
Yeah. I think it took me a few attempts to figure out that I was jumping from the wrong place.
Yes.
And that was frustrating. Yeah.
Yes. It just took me a long time. And if I didn't have DK sitting next to me, I would not have done so many of these puzzles. But we'll get into that
We'll
later.
get into it, yeah.
And I did actually really like this bit. I thought it was a really cool scene. So once you do get through to the ritual chamber, they're starting a thing. And it's like a procession. And music is going on. And it's a whole parade thing almost.
Right.
And you sneak past everyone. Which... you do get caught at the end, but I was like, you would have gotten caught earlier because you are very obvious. Yeah. But I do like the way it's set up. I thought it was a really cool set build or world building thing.
Yeah, I like that, seeing the processional. That was cool. I did expect to get caught with the processional, but then you didn't. Yeah.
Until the very, very
Till
end.
the very end. Yeah. But I did like that. You're right.
Yeah. When you're literally hanging from the edge of the inside building in front of them, she's not caught.
But when you make like a slight noise or something, or no, I don't even know that you make a noise.
It's her foot.
Oh, foot
going through the like hole in the wall, and then they're like, "Wait!"
Oh God!
And you also walk across a beam right in front
right
of them.
Across them. So like I actually sat there for a while waiting for it to stop so I could go by, and it never stopped. So I was like, I guess I'm just going.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I was like, okay, I guess this is what they want us to do.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's just filler platforming, in my opinion.
It's a lot of platforming. A lot. Yeah.
It felt really filler to me.
And then a lot of fighting.
Yeah. Why don't you do the end?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Like, my actual notes for the end are really, really small. Like, you, as Laura, finally get the final, oh God, she's putting her soul in Sam, because Laura hadn't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
I don't know what she thought. She thought it was a transfer of power or something. But I thought it was pretty obvious that it was, But anyway, Laura figures that out, and so when she goes and does all this platforming shenanigans, in the middle of this happening, you start seeing cutscenes of the Sun Queen waking up in this like old body and starting to like put her soul into Sam. So like the ritual starts, and so as you're platforming and fighting, this ritual is going on. Eventually you do fight the big bad Oni, which wasn't that hard of a fight in my opinion. I think I beat it the first time.
I also wrote, like, guess we're just doing genocide now? Because it's like the native people of this island.
Trying to protect their queen.
That you're murdering.
Well, the queen is evil, and they're protecting an evil queen. So.
Yeah, I get it. But also I was like, oh, wow, this maybe didn't age the best.
Okay, that's fair.
Like full genocide of like a native
she really does kill literally
of this
everybody. Yeah.
Island.
Yeah. You could argue that they should have already been dead. You could argue that.
Could you?
I don't know. Anyway, she kills everybody, and then she also kills the Sun Queen. So finally doesn't choke, kills the Sun Queen, kills Matthias, and saves her friend Sam. I would bet you $10 that Sam is secretly part Sun Queen. I don't know if that's true.
Ooh, yeah, I bet they're setting that up.
She had like a little frost mark on her shoulder, and I was like,
they're totally setting that up.
Right? I don't know. Yeah. We might sound like idiots for the people who've played all of them. You're like, guys, that's stupid. But also, if it's not real, that would have been good.
I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and at that point, you get a giant screen that says, a survivor is born! And it's over.
Yeah, I the only thing that I wrote to add on to that is the last line she says is that she needs answers.
Oh, yes.
I'm not going home. I need answers.
Yeah. And I finished it apparently with a 68%, so I missed like 32% of the game. Sorry, y'all.
I think it's like 70-something.
Okay, well, that's better than me.
And then you watch the credits, and then I have a comment on the credits. Do you?
I don't know that I watched the credits. Crap.
So the credits start rolling, and boy, oh boy, is it a lot of men.
Oh, is it?
So they do a really cute thing, actually, where they put pictures of the departments as they're scrolling by.
Oh, that's cute.
And every picture is either all white men or all white men and one woman. Every single picture.
I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Yeah.
No. Like, you're not surprised, but you just forget how our environment is so different for the gaming industry. I forget what the gaming industry tends to look like sometimes. Yeah. And I know that it's a big deal, and it is great that they had a female writer on the team. But when you look at the whole department, every department, it's almost all men, and almost all white men too, right? Like, it's not even just all men. Yeah. And so, wow, this is really highlighting how male-dominated game creation is.
Yeah. And I mean, I forget about it too sometimes, because the teams we work on at work, or I don't know about yours if it's as much, but we have a lot of women on
Yeah.
our team at work.
Yeah.
Like our team does a really good job at making sure that we have diverse voices, which I love.
Mhm.
But I forget sometimes that that's unusual and that having 50%
Yes.
women isn't like a normal thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
especially from the perspective, because we work on a gaming platform,
Mhm.
not a game.
Yeah.
And so I think it's even worse in game creator spaces, right? Like,
Mhm.
we barely ever see
Yeah.
women game creators at the Game Awards getting awarded,
Yeah.
you know?
And it is sad to think about when Maddie and I picked this title. One of the reasons we picked it was because Lara Croft is one of the ones that are brought up a lot about like strong hero characters or whatever, like the main characters of video games. Lara Croft is a main character, and she is highlighted a lot in those kinds of
And it's
strong
highlighted
groups.
as a game that had contribution, like significant contribution from women, which it did in the writer, but it's sad that what significant contribution
What
means
means-
is that
Yeah,
one person out of 50
Yeah.
was a woman or something, you know? Like,
totally.
okay, want to get to our little wrap up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Okay. What you loved or what you liked. Doesn't have to be love. I didn't really, yeah.
Okay, so I will say that the combat aspect was something I actually enjoyed.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure if I'm getting better at video games because we've been playing more games of different types that I haven't normally played. So I couldn't tell if I was getting better, but I had so many headshots. I was so proud of myself.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and like maybe it's just an easy game. And you know what? If it is, good job. I liked
I
it.
don't know. I think headshots
fun.
count for something.
I do. I agree with that. Yeah. I liked the combat from that perspective.
What was your main?
My main was the bow and
Yeah.
arrow with fire.
Gun.
I loved it. I do a lot of the shotgun.
Got it.
Yeah, because I do bow and arrow if they're far away, and then if they get close. I will say near the end, I started using the grenades a lot more, but the grenades weren't as impactful as I wanted them to be, so I didn't use it as much as...
Yeah.
The other things that I kind of liked... I love the aspect of fire. They added fire to like half the weapons.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. I thought it was fun. Yeah.
So what was meh about gameplay to you, or what did you not like about gameplay?
So what I didn't like about the gameplay, one, quick time events.
Mm-hmm.
Meh. Two, I thought the upgrade systems were pretty boring and inconsequential. Generally, the upgrades I didn't really notice except for near the end to get like more melee things.
Mhm.
And that I did notice, but it took a while to get there. And like we talked about, there wasn't a lot of survival aspects, and
Mhm.
a lot of the upgrades had to do with like just scavenging the same parts, and that was boring to me.
Yeah.
And the last thing I didn't really like was the puzzles were just typical environment puzzles. Like, there's a rope, you gotta pull it. There's a box, you gotta light it on fire. And I think I was extra disappointed because I had heard that Tomb Raider was a puzzle game,
Mm-hmm.
a puzzle and a platformer game. And it, to me, was not that at all. It was an action combat game with barely any, like, real puzzles.
Yeah.
And the issue for me that these puzzles had specifically was that, like, for me, puzzles are fun because you have that moment of, like, what do I do? And then a light bulb goes off and you're like, oh my God, I'm the smartest person in the whole entire fucking world. Look at me. Like, I'm amazing. And these puzzles just didn't have that for me because it was a lot of just like push and pull and try that again. And oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's try that. And it just felt like a tedious kind of
really
waste of
curious
time.
to hear your thoughts on the puzzles.
Yeah, it was just puzzles. I will say that puzzles that are easy sometimes go over really well because people think I'm a super genius. Like, you have to write them well so that you have that moment of like, I am a god, you know, like even if they're easy.
Yeah.
And then ones that are hard, you can still have that happy moment of like, oh my God, I did this slog and I figured it out. I'm amazing. But these puzzles fell strictly in like such an average category that it wasn't, it was either just kind of like a tedious waste of time to me, or
Yeah.
I felt like it was kind of dumb. I don't know. So it was just, they were okay. And for me, my very favorite puzzle was the very first one. And the rest of them were like this exact same, just a different order. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about
so
you?
Gameplay things that I liked were the combat, especially the bow
Mhm.
and arrow. That was also what I mained. And then I also mained the rifle and I also did like the tombs specifically.
But there were so few of them.
There was few of them. When I did find them, though, I liked them. I thought they were nice bite-sized little exploration things. And then things that I thought were meh, I thought that the stealth element could have been a little bit better.
I'd agree with that.
I liked the idea behind it, but the sound that it made really, really bothered me.
Yeah.
And it also didn't stay quite long enough. So I was constantly having to hit it. And it also kind of hurt my eyes to go back and forth between it a lot. So that is one thing that I thought I liked the idea, but could have been executed better.
Yeah.
And I'm particularly sensitive to sounds in general. And so that was just really... I mean, that probably isn't a surprise because I mute most of the games that I play. I'm just like really sensitive.
Honestly, this one I almost muted if the characters didn't have voices. The sound hurt me. Like it was in this case it was not my favorite.
Yeah. And the constant just boof, boof, boof.
Yeah.
Boof.
The menus did that too. If you notice, like the menus when you scroll through them, it was just like boom, 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 boom. Like it was very aggressive.
Yeah. And just startling, and I don't like it. The things that I did not like at all were the puzzles, which I've learned that I think I'm just not good at observational puzzles.
Yeah.
I find them annoying. And then DK was sitting next to me, thank God, for most of the time I was playing this game. And if I didn't have him there, I wouldn't have been able to do half of these things as quick as I would have. And the only reason he knows how to do it is because it's very like video game puzzle.
Yeah, it was very.
He's
video
like, there's
game
patterns to these, right? Because
yes.
I was like, how are you so good at this?
You highlight like, the things, and then you find the ones that are highlighted, and then
like he just knows how to do that shit from his growing up playing these types of games. Like he had played Tomb Raider growing up, and he had played all. So that's but I just don't. My brain doesn't work that way. I like puzzles, but not that kind of puzzle. I think I've decided.
Yeah. Which I think is fair. They're very different, and a lot of puzzles like work different parts, and
they feel like time wasters to me. It feels like the game isn't respecting my time. Like the elevator one.
The elevator one was the most annoying one. 100%
because you have to go onto a floor, turn the crank, climb a ladder, go to the next floor, turn the crank, do a thing.
Yeah.
Go down to the floor, do it again, go up to the third floor. Bounce back and forth between all these floors.
Not to mention buttons. The elevator had a terrible sound every time it moved. Yeah.
It was so bad, and it just didn't feel like it respected my time.
Yeah.
That sounds so harsh.
No, I think puzzle design is tough because even if some people love it, people are different when it comes to puzzles. And in my opinion, those weren't well done puzzles. But I like pretty much all kinds. Like, I didn't think they were hard puzzles. I just thought they were tedious.
Yeah. And the QuickTime events, obviously, boo. Yeah. Do you want to talk about story a little bit now? Yeah, let's do the story.
Okay, so I literally split this up into what I thought they did right and what I thought they did wrong.
I like it.
So my rights and what I thought was good was I did think that it was more cinematic than I expected, which I did find it was a little overwhelming at times, but I thought it was kind of cool. I am a big fan of scattered documents, but because of the exploration, which I didn't really touch on much, the exploration was more limited than I thought it would be. At least it felt that way for me, and I didn't want to explore because the environment was so dreary that I was just like, I did not want to hang out there in it. And that's usually why I explore, is because I want to see stuff, and I did not want to see a thing in it. And so I missed a lot of documents, even though I thought that the document idea is still cute and I like it.
Yeah.
And they did have some really cute storylines in it. So those are the main rights I had. I did say that the story of the sun goddess wasn't innovative, but it was entertaining.
Yeah.
It was entertaining. It reminded me a little bit of Lost, actually, especially when we find out that the whole island has military research centers, and they've been doing stuff with it. And so I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting they used the Dragon Triangle, which is a real place. Those were the rights for me.
Yeah.
For the wrongs, I think we touched on.
Should I do my rights?
Yeah, do your rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
I loved the campy parts of the story.
Like,
and
which
I
ones?
think the, like, camp. You know what I mean? Like, there was, like, campy aspects of this game and this story that were just so over the top. Like,
okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And that's what I wish they had leaned into more.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did lean into it, that's when it was more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Sun Goddess storylines.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. I just thought that when it was campy, that's when it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my positive.
Hilarious. I will say,
it's entertaining.
an interesting thing that I had read about the writer is she had said that the original games are more humorous and more campy, I think, and she had wanted to put more camp in it, but the producer whatevers have told her no, they wanted to be more serious. And Maddie says they're wrong.
And
Take
Maddie says
notes.
they're wrong.
Okay, so my wrongs. One, I feel like Laura, not the actual actress, I thought she did a fine job.
Mm-hmm.
But the Laura writing, she was surprised all the time when we had literally spent like the last 2 hours before that absolutely 100% knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about stuff that I like guessed. Like I did guess some of it, but no, literally at some point we hear them talk about Sam and we learn about the fire ritual and we hear her say there's going to be a fire ritual and still Laura's like, oh my God, they're using Sam as a vessel?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So
Yeah.
it felt like the beats were off there, like from when we learned versus when Laura learned, and it made Laura look dumber than she was. And I didn't like that. The second thing was, I already talked about it. The characters kept dying and we didn't learn anything about them. So I'm not going to go into that more. It sucked and I did not like it. The research station was... I love me a little bit of weird research stations on creepy islands. I was a big fan of Lost and I love the Lost ending. Fight me on it. But the research station plus a literal crap ton of dead bodies scattered all around this stupid island, and they're like, it's a secret, no one's ever found it before. Oh my God.
They have that
right? They spent the whole time being
There's
like,
literally thousands and thousands and thousands.
So many dead bodies. Like, so
Actually,
many.
I would probably guess that there's like over 1 million
Literally.
skeletons and dead bodies on this island.
Because you're just wading through them and like multiple scenes, like wading.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was so like flabbergasted that they spent so long being like, Laura, you figured out where this is at. Nobody's ever figured it out. And I'm like, literally everyone has. And if this was like a small country had died going into the Dragon's Triangle, then I swear to God,
like
somebody would be investigating.
Of Seattle has died on this island.
And it has a radio tower and a military station. So you're telling me there's no documentation anywhere about this island? It was just, that was stupid. And then finally, like, I think this is actually your point, but worse. Like, I did a worse job as describing it. As I said that the cinematic scenes that they had, I felt like the player should have played because she kept fumbling. Like, she kept making mistakes. And I was like, if I would have played that, it would have been more fun because I could have tried and they could have forced me to fail. And then I would have felt like, well, I tried, and I would have blamed me and not Laura.
Yeah.
And so those are my meh. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that it needed editing. I think it would have been a much more fun 8 to 10 hour game than 12 to 13 hour game.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think because a lot of it was Sam getting kidnapped again.
Yes.
Going to rescue Sam again. Oh no, you got her back. Oh, she got kidnapped again. And you got her back. Oh, she got kidnapped again. It felt like it dragged when it could have been tighter and crisper. And it would have been a better experience overall. That was my main note.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally agree.
Okay, can I read that funny review, or do you have any final thoughts before I read the funny review of that encapsulated the things I didn't like?
I will mention one thing.
Okay.
Which is small and short, which is I think that there were a lot of things they could have done better with Laura's character, but I would still say that we need to see more characters like Laura in video games.
Totally.
Not every like piece of media is going to be perfect. I think they tried to create a character here with depth, and I was still happy to have played as Laura.
Yes.
So that's my final like little bit. Yeah.
I like it. So the review that I'm going to say that I thought was funny Explore such mysteries as why does Laura have an Australian accent if she's from the UK? Where do the corpses keep coming from? How to shoot a deer for literally no reason? How to turn guns into better guns with random scrap? Who is Laura's father? Why does the Stone Queen like to do weather? Press a button to live. Run on collapsing structure, get impaled, discover why there's only 5 actual tombs in a Tomb Raider game.
There were 7.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought that review was funny.
Yeah,
and I agree. Accurate. But back to your point, I did have fun. And I think it would have been more fun if it was just tightened up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you recommend it? Who'd you recommend it to? And what's your rating?
I would recommend it if you like action games. Like, this feels like the very classic
Yes,
action
this is the
game.
Definition of action game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you like those, play it. If you don't, maybe skip this one. And my personal rating is 3 out of 5 artifacts.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So I waffled a bit on this one. This one is actually the first game that made me think we needed to do a scale of 10 instead of a scale of 5. Mostly because I wanted to give it a 3, but I really wanted to give it like a 4 out of 10 instead of, I guess that's a 2, but it's a 2.
That's bad.
Yeah, like it just wasn't special and about anything else for me. Like, the story had a lot of issues for me. The puzzles just were not my favorite. And at the end of the day, like, I would say if I was going to recommend it, I'd recommend it as like a not super tough action shooter with kind of interesting but kind of frustrating platformers if you like QuickTime events. And I wouldn't recommend this to people who like puzzles, even though I had heard it was a puzzle game, so maybe that's a little bit of why I'm feeling sad about it. And I would recommend it if you just want to play a game to like highlight women as main badass characters, like, you know, go do that. Like, that was fun. But overall, I wanted to give it like a 3, a 2-ish, 2.5 maybe. I don't know. It feels bad to give it a 2. It feels better to give it a 4. So that's why I was like in a weird place. But yeah, it's $2 right now on Steam though. So would definitely recommend for that price. And
right after I bought it for $20.
I know. I was like, not for the, But I was a little disappointed, I think, all around. And I kind of want to play some of the older ones that are more puzzly. Because apparently in the first franchise, you only kill 6 people total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty different kind of game.
Very different.
Yeah.
So what are you landing on?
I'll recommend it, but I'm giving it a 2.5.
2.5 out of 5. What?
Out of 5. Out of 5 tombs.
There we go.
Because there were only 5. No, there were 7, but still, whatever.
Whatever. Cool.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and rate it. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Baddy Breakdowns, and visit our website, baddybreakdowns.com, made by me, Bridget Keene. The podcast art was done by the lovely Tanisha Vernicar, and the podcast was edited by Maddie Wisnot. Am I saying that right? Am I still saying that right or wrong?
I don't care.
No, just tell me. Say it one more time.
It's Wizenat. It's you said it just perfectly fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll cut that out. It's fine. Join us next time to hear us. Join us next time. Join us next time to hear us two baddies break down a very new indie game that's starting to get attention called Bloody Hell, and it's made by some college students.
Yeah, and it's free on Steam, so you can go download it and
play it with us. Yeah.
And also download it soon, because from the rumblings I've been hearing about how good it is, someone thinks that
it's gonna start costing
Devolver
money.
or something is going to pick it up and then start selling it.
So get it now.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Wait.